Hello and welcome back to all radio entrepreneurs, listeners, and viewers. I'm producer Nathan Gobes. I'm excited to introduce you to part 2 of the Radio Entrepreneurs FBA Family Business Panel discussion, Turning Chaos into Stability and Profitability. In this spring 2022 edition of the panel discussion, which will be broken into 3 parts, in this part we'll be covering topics related to opportunities and threats during chaos, as well as supply chain issues. If you have not yet seen part 1 of this panel discussion, we recommend you head over to radioentrepreneurs.com or any of our many other channels to catch the first segment where we discuss leadership during chaos and culture. All of these discussions are intended to be highly relevant to business owners of family businesses, but also entrepreneurs of all types. So be sure to follow Radio Entrepreneurs on LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube, or any of the other many platforms we stream on. And that way you'll also catch the third segment as it goes live. Next, our 4 panelists for this discussion are Rich Hirschen of Gray, Gray, Kelly Berardi of Gray, Gray, Steve Wilchins of Wilchins, Cosentino, and Novins, and Chris Perry of Northern Trust. Welcome, everyone. For their full bios and introductions, please refer back to part 1. Last but not least, JDavis, Radio Entrepreneurs host and CEO of Mage LLC. Welcome, Jeff. I'll hand the conversation over to you.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to my panel. And I did appreciate our first segment, for those who missed it, on culture during this time of chaos. And it really is a time of chaos, of great change. And I think that the pace of change is actually going to continue over the next 2 to 5 years. And from what I'm reading, at a pace that we have never experienced before. So whatever we think we've been in for, it's going to get even more so. So with that in mind, this whole segment is about supply chain issues, opportunities, and risks for businesses. So how has the current volatility affected taking risks or opportunities with supply chain? How do you see it from both sides? Anybody want to jump on that one first?
Well, I think it also creates a moral issue. I was with a client yesterday, and they were deciding, they had deposits in hand, and they were talking about whether we continue to sell to Russia. And this was a major order, large client. And there was a moral issue. And it was interesting that they had to really talk through with their management team what they wanted to do, because I think it had huge impact on the employees. So, they've spent probably a week talking about this issue, whether they should continue to fulfill the order, even though that would create major impact financially to the organization at some point.
Wow, that's an interesting twist, Steve, to be taking on that. Anybody else want to address this or maybe add to what Steve said?
Jeffrey, I have a different angle than Steve's on this. On the supply chain side of things, we at Northern Trust are wealth management folks, so we look at the markets and look at inflation. And we had predicted relatively low rates for a long period of time, and we have now done a 180 switch and are expecting interest rates are going to be much higher for a long period of time now. And for any business owner, the ability to borrow at low and kind of affordable rates is a key part of their business strategy and liquidity needs. So we're seeing our business owner clients looking to lock in rates and not have the floating rate situation. And so that's a very real part of what we're seeing. Inflation is real, and the Fed's going to be responding, and business owners are going to have both costs associated with that, but also borrowing costs.
Not only the borrowing costs in terms of interest rates, but just the availability of credit, of making sure you have enough working capital as things are going to cost more, and everything else. I think companies are going to need to evaluate how much availability they have on lines of credit and things like that, and possibly talk to banks about increasing those if it's necessary.
It's not only the credit and low interest rates change, but I think there are a number of people for the last several years are over leveraged. based on the very low interest rates over the years. And I think that we're going to see substantial changes, both in manufacturing and in real estate, that there'll be dramatic changes with regards to the impact of the rates going up.
I think that's an important point, Steve. And I think about it in terms of the end users, the people I speak to, and you can all address this, they say to me, what I used to be able to predict that I could buy for the next 3 to 6 months, I can't predict to buy for the next 48 hours. What I used to be able to deliver on with a predictable date, I have no dates of predictability for being able to deliver. I have no predictable dates of being able to quote anymore. So I can't predict anything on quoting. So every day I'm going in with a new surprise on how to run my business and keep people satisfied. And what people get in the long run is a lot of anger. What's this price? Why are you telling me it's now 4 months more that it's going to take? What used to take a year can maybe take 2.5 years. It's a big problem because I'm not sure people really are changing expectations during supply chain issues. Everybody knows it's going on, but everybody still wants what they want. It's the American way. And I see you, Chris, nodding to what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. The expectations are still that people are going to get what they want immediately, and it's a challenge for a business owner who needs to have the inventory in order to supply it. So,
anybody else want to address that?
So I think the business owner has to decide, well, what happens next and how to handle it. How do I assure myself I'm going to get the supply? Do I have to worry about that, try to source another vendor, or do I go into a different line of business or product line? So I think that's a constant decision that they have to review to determine what's the best course of action.
Well, I know that if you have case studies, I know in the last few weeks in both Florida and Massachusetts, I've had to do car repairs. And both times I was told, we don't know when we can get these parts. Yeah. So they sort of take my car and I'm sort of sitting there in limbo wondering, when am I going to get my car back? One car, I waited a month. I never expected, a year or 2 years ago to ever wait for a part for my car for a month. I'm waiting for a part for my car here where I am here in Massachusetts right now for 2 weeks for another car that needs a part. It's very unusual. You see the supply chain issues, I guess, most easily to be seen in the automotive industry. And it kind of blows me away what I'm seeing for pricing in that way. But does anybody else have any specific examples of industries where they're seeing things?
Well, seeing it in the manufacturing side, because a number of companies that have sourced overseas are thinking about bringing it back to the U.S. because, the labor costs, in particular China, has risen dramatically. And, the time and the shipping issues that people are looking at it and saying, based on inflation, it may not be so bad to move it back and, establish a beachhead somewhere in a non-labor union state to start manufacturing again. So I've seen that with a number of clients as well.
You're going to keep seeing that. I've had clients that, want a food manufacturer that couldn't get the packaging to put the food in. And I've heard, a lot of stories like that. So it's one challenge after another. They, first can't find people and they're still doing that issues. And then just the cost of all the, raw materials are way up, and then they don't even have the packaging to put the product in. So tough times.
I've seen that also, Rich, with the paper industry, where people are looking for paper and they're getting paper, but at double the price, and they're expected to hold the line on their price. It's hard when you're getting supply chain issues where you're supposed to hold your price, but where your margins are being eroded. And I'm sure as financial people, the two of you have seen that also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Tough. Well, I think anyone's definition, there's a war going on in Eastern Europe, and we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know if there's going to be more instability in South China. in Russia, how long this is going to go on for. So how do you prepare for supply chain issues when you don't know what's going to happen, and this could go on a year, 2 years, 3 years? Well, the Cold War went on for 50 years, and we don't know what we're in for. How do you plan?
I don't know. It depends on what industry. I mean, the defense industry, I was just thinking about it. Raytheon must be doing extremely well, or the companies that, develop missiles, et cetera. I mean, this is an unbelievable opportunity through the defense industry to generate huge profits. And the related associated industries that service the defense industry.
Well, that's true. That is an issue. And then my last question in this area, what are some of the tax related issues and opportunities that business owners should see during these chaotic times with supply chain issues? Sorry, I had a little mental block there.
Yeah, so I think a lot of our clients are taking advantage of employee retention credits, R&D credits, and other incentives, loans, and things like that are being offered through the government. I think what our clients are really struggling with is actually getting the ERC money. They've all kind of submitted those refund claims or amended 940, 941s with the IRS, and have some of them waiting up to 6 months for even confirmation that they've received it, and others haven't received any of the money. So there are opportunities out there to take advantage of, but the benefits and payments have been, very, very slow.
Well, here's something that I've seen recently. Have any of you seen differences in the way people are producing business plans over this particular time period? I have. I'll let somebody else say. Again, Chris, I'll pick on you because you nodded first.
Sure. I mean, I think when you think about a business plan, the variability of the supply chain is such a critical piece of it, and so the business, you're building in. Whether it's EBITDA, whether it's your margins, whatever, you're building in a much broader kind of potential outcome. And as we work with business owners, some of whom are planning for an exit, the uncertainty around those variables become a real challenge for understanding what potentially could be, a sale price at the end. So we're working with our clients on a lot of different variables now. So it's if we're looking for an exit within the next 5 years, how can we model for that in terms of planning now based on any number of different outcomes that could be hugely have a wide disparity of different different results. So that's kind of the way I think our angle, Jeffrey, in terms of how we're seeing this play out. It's the need to have a really broad perspective on outcomes.
Anybody else want to address that? No, I will. I'll take a shot at that. I always think it's interesting. I've become a dinosaur. When I first got into business, I used to sit in offices for 3 to 4 or 5 months, putting together 200-page business plans to impress clients. And, we'd research forever. We'd go to libraries too. There was no internet at that time. So I am dating myself to some degree. I'm hopefully going to hold Kelly off from picking on me. Nowadays, I think the whole thing is about being nimble, looking at all the options you have, 30, 60, 90-day plans with alternatives and actions and different variables, looking at different financing options. So it's all about this sort of like almost like a portable, guerrilla warfare. It really is guerrilla warfare at a whole different level of planning and attacking. And I do like these sort of 30, 60-day business plan models that are much shorter and really attacking the market as it's changing, gets reevaluated with proper committees on an ongoing basis. So that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at healthy organizations that are more nimble, which goes back to our first segment where Stephen talked about a more flexible management and leadership structure. So does anybody, before we finish this segment, does anybody want to add to my point on that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's going to be critical. There's so much change going on in the world that, if you get locked into a 5-year plan, that may have sounded good, 3 months ago, but now as things have changed, it might not be the right plan for the company anymore. So like you said, being nimble, being willing to change, I think are very, very important in these times.
So that agree with that, but that's compounded with the closed-mindedness many times of a family business, of a patriarch trying to convince the patriarch to look at a different position or angle or market or product. And that becomes, it's by the time you convince the owner, you're 30, 60, 90 days past the opportunity, and then you have to restart. And that's a challenge that I have found with a few clients, that they're not nimble enough. They're not willing to accept their management team, and they're very closed-minded in that sense.
I'll add to that one of the most important things that we can do as advisors to our clients is give them the truth about our perspective on their situation as kind of diplomatically but candidly as we can, because they may be too close to it to see what we're seeing from our perspective, taking a wider angle view of their business and the impacts on it. We've definitely found, and I know, Jeffrey, this is your business, but we can be incredibly helpful and valuable to our clients by giving them advice about how they may need to think differently about the future supply chain, liquidity needs, what have you.
Well, clients used to schedule with me. I'm sure this is the same with both of you, a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. And now it's text, talk now. It's text, talk now. Something just happened. Everything is immediately, this has just happened. We have to react to it. What's the perspective on it? And then developing leadership strategies for this, and then processes for dealing with it appropriately so that people are in control. So it's a whole different level of emotion too that's happening throughout all organizations dealing with this. Supply chain is affecting people emotionally within organizations. So I think that's critical, but it also relates to our next segment, which Nathan's going to talk about doing transitions during times of chaos, which I think is something I'm seeing a lot of too. Some people are saying, before we get into it, people are getting tired and they're saying, this is not my game anymore. So Nathan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. That was a great run-up for our third segment. But this is the end of our second segment on the spring 2022 edition of the FBA Family Business Panel discussion. Thanks to all our listeners and viewers who have tuned in to Radio Entrepreneurs. Links will be provided in the video description below to part 1 if you didn't already hear it, and part 3 once it goes live. But be sure to also like, comment, share, subscribe, and press the bell button. It helps immensely. And Radio Entrepreneurs is, of course, also highly active on LinkedIn, so be sure to go follow our page there for more business advice and discussion. Until next time, goodbye and thanks for listening. We'll be back with more stories on Radio Entrepreneurs.